From my experience, whenever people bring up the subject of greatest collectathon games, usually the ones that come up for me the most are Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Tooie. And well, those are the only ones that ever really get brought up from my experience. But in my opinion, there's one game that gets overlooked way too much. And that of course is Pikmin 2. Granted, I don't blame people for overlooking this game when discussing collectathon-style games, but just because you're not platforming here doesn't mean it's any less of a collectathon since that's the aim of the game. Collect a bunch of random crap for profit. Pikmin 2 is quite an interesting sequel in that it played very similar to the first game, but due to the goal being different, it drastically changed gameplay as well. But before I get into that, let's get into the story a bit. So, after the events of the first game, Olimar makes it back to his home planet only to find out that the company he works for is having to go bankrupt due to Louie, Olimar's fellow worker, losing an expensive shipment that forced the company to sell off its assets. But once they find out that a bottle cap that Olimar brought back with him is actually considered valuable, him and Louie are tasked with collecting treasure to pay off the debt. And that's essentially what you do in Pikmin 2. Explore each of the 3, then 4 worlds to collect valuable items to pay off a debt which, quite honestly, won't take you that long to do. That's quite the change from emergency, repair your ship in 30 days or you die to raise $10,000 and take as long as you want. I've heard the complaint that some people didn't like this change as they felt it killed off any sense of urgency since you can take as much time as you want now, which I can't argue that since it is a valid point for people who preferred Pikmin 1's approach, but I'd be lying if I said I preferred it over Pikmin 2's play at your own pace approach. Not to say that I don't like the arcade approach the first game had, but the more fleshed out adventure style of 2 just appeals to me a lot more. So as a sequel, there obviously had to be some new additions, and this was no exception as 2 is a much larger game than the original. The first one is obvious as there is now 2 captains to control. This was a godsend since you can now manage 2 teams and have one team working on one thing, and another to work on something else, increasing productivity big time. The second is new Pikmin types, 3 actually. The purple Pikmin that are heavy and slow but have the strength of 10 Pikmin, white Pikmin who are poisonous and poison resistant, as well as fast and can see hidden treasure, my personal favorite, and then the very rare Bulbmin who act like controlling parasites on other species. There's also new enemies to face, as well as dungeon-like areas in each world that have you go through a set number of floors, collecting treasure and trying to survive with as many Pikmin as you can until you reach the boss of each dungeon. Defeat him or her or it, and you'll be rewarded with an upgrade for your captains. I've also heard the dungeons are either a love or hate thing, and for me it's definitely a love thing since it provides a lot of the challenge this game offers. Cause you're not getting it with just trying to pay off the debt. Hell, you don't even gain access to the final area until you technically beat the game. But due to how much stuff there is to collect and do, achieving the $10,000 goal is usually going to be a different experience each time you play it. Well, to some extent, but it's due to the sense of freedom this game gives the player. Then after that, you choose whether or not you want to finish collecting everything and see what you missed, cause there's a shit ton of post-game content, with an encyclopedia that tracks all the treasure and creatures you've killed. Oh, I love the Piccolopedia. Just so much charm was put into this. Getting to see Olimar and Louie's views on everything when it's filled right up, I'll be in like a zen state mode for like an hour just browsing this. Straight up, any game devs that do this kind of thing, thank you for putting the effort in. It's technically not important, but it adds so much charm and quality to a game. It's the same reason why trophies in Smash Bros are such a loved aspect. But this game in general reeks charm, and you can see this from the moment you discover your first treasure. A D-sized Duracell battery. I don't know how much it cost Nintendo to use so many brand names for Pikmin 2, but man did it pay off since I'm sure anyone who played this laughed their ass off the first time they seen this. The only negative that I can really think of that comes to mind, and granted it is a hindsight nitpick, but I feel this game was the perfect opportunity to include co-op for story mode. To me it just made too much sense to add, because Pikmin 2 does have a competitive 2-player mode, so 2 players was doable for this game. And I think it would have been an awesome option for the campaign. Not a deal breaker by any means, I just think it was a missed opportunity. But Pikmin 2, I have pretty much nothing bad to say about this game. About every year, every couple of years, I pop this game in and have an awesome time with it. If you're okay with the end goal change, then I think you'll enjoy the sequel to one of the most unique games out there.